Hello, everybody, and welcome into Commodity Culture, where we break down commodities markets, sound money principles, and geopolitics, all with the goal of making you a better investor in the commodities sector. My name is Jesse Day, and today is March 18th, 2026. I'm thrilled to welcome Lynette Zang to the program, an economist, precious metals, and currency analyst, and the CEO of Zang International. Lynette warns of multiple doom loops emerging in financial markets and the global economy, and why it could be signaling that the end game of the fiat currency system is closer than most anticipate. In this scenario, Lynette sees a 4-digit silver price as a very realistic target, with gold also soaring into the stratosphere as confidence in the dollar collapses and the public is left scrambling for sound money. Lynette also breaks down why all wars are bankers' wars and how the conflict in Iran could affect precious metals markets and the global economy. Why the central planners are intent on driving the herd into a digital prison, including CBDCs, when the system collapses in a controlled demolition, and so much more. So strap yourselves in for my conversation with Lynette Zang. Lynette Zang, it is great to have you back on Commodity Culture. Last time I had you on the show was December of last year, when silver was just passing $60, and what a ride it's been since then as the metal soared into triple digits before a big correction, now sitting at around $77. What are your thoughts on this roller coaster that silver has been on, and where do you see it headed next?
Well, really what's happening in here is the markets are very, 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 oh, did I say very? Dependent on cash flows. And the ETFs are a phenomenal tool and an easy tool to use to push the directions one way or the other. And so, we have to always go back to the fact that people will refer to gold and silver when they're really referring to the spot market, not the physical market. And the spot market is just really easy to manipulate one way or the other. So there was a tremendous amount of speculation. Of course, it's Wall Street. And there was a tremendous amount of speculation in the contracts. So if you couple that with the transition that we're already in from the digital or the paper markets dictating price discovery, shifting to the physical markets dictating price discovery, then this roller coaster makes all the sense in the world. And don't jump off. Just you stay on and you ride this puppy as far as it's going to go, because what we're also witnessing is the breakdown of the system in kind of real time.
And we've seen some interesting glitches, some are calling them. Others are calling them out as shenanigans at the CME COMEX, trading being halted at certain times due to cooling issues. That was last year. There were some other issues that have happened recently that have halted a variety of commodities, including silver, from being traded at certain times. And then, of course, there was the infamous day, I believe it was in January, where silver fell 26% in a single day. And many have pointed out that there's supposed to be circuit breakers that trigger on the COMEX when the metal plunges that far, that fast, or when it rises that far, that fast in either direction.
Right.
And they were not triggered. So I'm wondering what your thoughts are on all of that, and how, the conspiracy theorists among us, of which I count myself as one, you kind of have to be these days, would say perhaps there's something nefarious behind it. What do you think?
I think there is something completely nefarious about this whole fiat money scheme. I think it's absolutely disgusting. And a lot of, what is it? A rising gold price equals a failing currency. And once you truly understand that this system is dead, it's not that it's dying, it is dead, then you start to make different choices, and not into paper, not into intangibles, but into hard assets. Because this, yes, you can manipulate those paper markets, what they were created to do. And openly created to do that. So, not a big surprise, because this is a trading market. It is the trading that matters, but it's also, the markets are so dependent upon that flow of funds, and that all of that QE money, all of that money that they pushed into the system It just flows from here to there, from there to here, from there to and it moves everything around because that money's got to float somewhere. So, I know enough because I've been doing this my whole life that I know enough what's noise and what's truth. And if you look at what's really happening and Wall Street actually saying who was it? It wasn't Bear Stearns. It was Jeffries and then a number of Wall Street pundits that are saying buy gold and buy gold.
Yeah, the CIO of Morgan Stanley, I believe, said to add 20% gold exposure, physical gold to the portfolio. Very interesting.
Very interesting because more and more of these Wall Street talking heads are coming out and saying hard assets, buy gold, buy silver. Really, look at what's happening around the world. And war is one of the big indicators that we're in this transition.
Yeah, I want to get to that in just a moment. But first, I want to stay on silver for a second here because you've said on this show in the past that you think silver's true value if price manipulation were to disappear and price discovery were to occur would be over $1,000 per ounce. Now, I think after it ran to around 120, this is actually looking more realistic. Do you think we're ultimately headed to 4-digit silver, and how long could it take us to get there?
I think 100%, here, I'll be outrageous. We could end up with 6-digit silver and we could end up with 10-digit gold. But what is that digits? I mean, what do I have here? My little, wherever it is. I always lose it. Here it is. Look at all the digits on my $10 trillion Zimbabwe note. So it doesn't matter. Those zeros, they don't matter. And that's what I try and help people understand, because let's say that silver got to $100,000 an ounce. Well, what is that really saying? Is that saying that silver's value has gone up that much, or that the currency will buy you nothing? So are you going to want to convert it into that currency? Only if you're going to convert it into an income producing asset like that. You're not going to want to even sit on it for 5 minutes. So, that's why. And if you're asking me when, it hasn't been published yet. And I'm really actually quite proud of this. I just finished a series, although I have subsequently discovered I need to put one more piece in it. But I just finished a series on the 5 doom loops of a financial crisis. And I really took my time with this and dug in deep. And I hate to tell you this, but every loop is screaming, and it is a downward spiral that we are frankly already in. I'd been talking about private credit and private equity forever, and how they are incestuously intertwined with the banks, even though all the articles that would come out, oh no, we have no exposure. Look at all the exposure that's being discovered now. Do you think that's all of it? And do you think we've seen all the cockroaches? Because I don't think so. I think we are very primed for the next major financial crisis. And I would be surprised. We'll see what happens. I would be surprised if we weren't in a full-blown, obvious financial crisis. God, I want to say 2 years just because I want to buy a little bit of time, but I honestly don't think it's that long, Jesse. I could be wrong. Maybe there's a rabbit that they have in a hat somewhere that they can magically pull out to keep things going. But the inflation, PPI came in stronger. They changed the rules. There's nobody that's really watching. They're just throwing this data out. We're flying blind. We've got these guys driving this bus into a wall and they have blinders on. They can't see what's happening because they had to convolute their numbers so much to make it look like how they wanted us to see it. But that doesn't change the rot that's underneath, and it doesn't make anybody safe. What I can tell you, especially just concluding that series where I'm pulling up all of these different points, And it even opened my eyes. It's one of the reasons why I love my work so much, is because my job is to dig in. Most people don't have that time. They're just busy trying to feed their family and pay their bills. So I consider myself extraordinarily fortunate to have the ability to really dig in. And this scared the crap out of me, especially since I just finished the fifth doom loop. And I'm like, holy crap, all of these things are already unfolding in a more and more rapid way. And so like it's a spiral. Each doom loop feeds on itself. And then when you get to the fifth doom loop, which is the economy doom loop, the real economy doom loop, then that spirals back to the first one, which is the collateral doom loop, right? Do we see an erosion in the value of the collateral that Wall Street is using? Then it's the intermediary. So, I mean, all of these doom loops feed on each other, and that series will start coming out. I don't know when, maybe next week. It's slated to. Totally. Viewers, watch this series. Without a doubt, I can sit here, and I've never said this to you before. We've had lots of conversations. I personally think this is the best work I've ever done.
The sponsor of today's episode is ARC Silver Gold Osmium. Owner Ian Everard is praised even by his competitors as one of the most honest and level-headed bullion dealers in the United States. They have some great prices. You can see some of them displayed right now on screen. Take advantage of these specials today by reaching out to Ian at 307-264-9441 or by email at ian@arcsgo.com. Make sure to tell him, of course, that Commodity Culture sent you. And now, back to the interview. Wow, and that's going to be on your YouTube channel, right? Because we'll link it in the description below so people can make sure to subscribe and check in when that is ready. What are the central planners? What are the banker class, the power brokers doing to prepare for this, the end result of this doom loop? Because we've discussed this before on the show, how governments are seeming to get more and more authoritarian in the West in terms of clamping down on certain speech, in terms of increasing tax obligations for citizens. We saw in the Netherlands, they're trying to literally tax unrealized capital gains, which is out of this world. In my home country of Canada, they're introducing all sorts of anti-hate speech bills. And they're also introducing a new measure to make taxation more of a strict process with less wiggle room for people. It's becoming insane. And I'm just wondering if this is all part of those central planners preparing for the eventual collapse, is to kind of get a vice grip on the citizens in advance so that when it does all fall apart, there's not much that they can do. What do you think about that theory?
That could not be more spot on. It was something that actually came up inside of the series, is stricter and stricter regulations. It's something that I've been watching on some level my whole life, but I've watched that ratchet up since 2008. And so the central planners and the governments, they're putting in all of these restrictions to block the exits, which is why I cannot encourage people enough to get their sound money strategy in place and executed. Because if you do not have this, I'm holding up the physical metals, but it's all of the mantra pieces. You need to have absolute surety and independence in food, water, energy, security, barterability, wealth preservation, community, arguably the most important part right now, and shelter. Because if you do not make sure that you have these things locked down, when you lose all of your choices, which is something that we've been talking about, then you have no choice but to do what the government wants. And so, yes, absolutely. What are they doing? They're creating all of those restrictions, and they're setting up to easily block the exits. And I'm going to come back to that in a second. But they're also buying more gold than they ever have historically. Why would they be doing that? After all, silver is more undervalued than gold is. But here's the thing, Jesse. Gold is the primary currency metal because sound money is supposed to be a tool of measure. I get this question all the time, which is why I'm bringing it up. well, why wouldn't you just do silver? Because you're thinking of it like a trade. Ooh, it's going to go up more in terms of dollars than gold is. But so silver is the fuse, right? It is a lot more volatile. It straddles, they both straddle both worlds, but this straddles it a little bit more intently, and it gets used up. This is the fuse. This is the anchor, because it is indestructible. So it's really against which all other assets are valued. That's the way it was before, and that's the way it will be again. So yeah, they are tightening the exits. And I'm telling you, people think that I'm crazy when I say, yeah, I could see an overt confiscation. And that's because they've been constantly covertly confiscating your wealth through inflation, through taxation, what you're talking about. If they can get us fully integrated into a digital system, now you've got your social scoring, which is already going on, because after all, I was just reading an article in the New York Times yesterday that was talking about these two close friends that bought a house in, I think, Minnesota, I don't know, somewhere, but they bought almost identical homes in the same neighborhood at the same time. And one's property taxes are twice as high as the other one's. Why? Because the one that has a better credit score is paying less property taxes. So this social scoring, whether people realize it or not, it's absolutely already in play. And once it becomes digital, then we lose all control. And that takes me to, the first form of community is to make sure that you have your food and water and security and all that stuff. But in that wealth preservation, my personal big battle, which we've talked about, is citizens for sound money on a global basis, and to get, I know this also sounds outrageous, but redeemable gold back in the system again. Because I cannot see, and I'm looking, and I'm open to whatever anybody else can say about this, but I see no other way for the public to take back their power than through a redeemable gold as part of the new currency system. And they aren't going to volunteer it. And what I mean by redeemable gold is if you don't like what you see the government or the central bank doing, you say, send me my gold. Because what gold does is it forces fiscal responsibility, and therefore they have to do what the public wants or they lose control because it's back in the public hand. This is the most important thing that I'm fighting for. The most important thing.
That's a very worthy cause to be fighting for, and we do need proper checks and balances in place. We need a reduction in the size of government. I mean, I think we need to remove government altogether. Perhaps anarcho-capitalism is a system that could be realistic at some point in the future. Obviously, the political class as they are now is going to fight tooth and nail against anything that removes their own power and privilege. So we've got a tough road ahead of us, but the more people are educated, the more people learn about sound money, the more of a chance we have. So that's why I appreciate all the work you do. And I want to pivot now to another regime change, another war going on. Now, gold and silver have actually fallen in response to this conflict. They continue to drop today. Gold now sub 5,000. And as I mentioned at the top of the show, silver now into the around $77 last time I checked. Is this part of a sell everything moment as people scramble for liquidity? And if the war continues to escalate and, God forbid, expand, how do you think that could impact the gold and silver markets?
Well, again, what you're really talking about are those contracts. And, I find it very interesting that the stock markets, while they are down an itty bitty bit, are basically very, very compliant. And yeah, what war? No big deal. The oil's spiking. I think I saw Brent like 108 this morning or something like that, a barrel, something like that, right? Who cares? So with the stock market like moving down a little bit, and you brought up liquidity, which is one of the doom loops, right? It's the liquidity doom loop. There is a need for liquidity, huge, for margin calls when these things implode. And keep in mind, private equity that is having a major liquidity crisis right now with those outflows. So you've got to, in those cases, you have to sell what the market's going to bear. It doesn't necessarily mean what you want. But remember as well that there was so much speculation in these paper markets. So a lot of what we're seeing in this pullback is, and I would have to calculate out how far away even the current prices are from that 200-day moving average, because that's really more of a gauge on how extreme things are. And so for people that aren't familiar with that, I mean, it's on all of the stock charts. It's easy to see. But for every single day, wherever spot gold or spot silver closes, or anything else for that matter, doesn't matter, they total up where the close was, and then they divide it by, they do that for 200 days, and they divide it by 200. It gives you an average. Well, 10% either below or above or below is considered a lot. And if you think of it kind of like a water skier, and if you're behind that boat and the price action, there's only so far above or to one side or the other that it's going to come back to that 200-day moving average. So it is different than this now, but probably not that much, because the last time that I looked at it, which was before the corrections, but spot silver was still at something like 70 some odd % away from that 200-day moving average. You know, that's speculation, right? That's speculation. And spot gold was something like 40% away. So even with these corrections, and it's easy enough for anybody to go and check, pull up stockcharts.com for free and you can check. My guess is it's still extremely above that 200-day moving average. This doesn't mean anything at all. It's just working out this overbought circumstance in an environment that is requiring liquidity. And at least at this point, those contracts are still liquid. I'm curious to see who's converting those contracts into taking the underlying silver or gold.
And do you think, as this war continues, as it seems to be dragging on for much longer than originally intended, that we could see more safe haven demand for physical gold and silver?
100%. I mean, 100%. Because really, it is a crisis of confidence that's happening. And the markets struggling as they are, that's a crisis of confidence. The confidence that they have in the Federal Reserve, well, frankly, they killed that in 2022. I mean, it's the public confidence that's really holding this stuff together. We witnessed just a couple days ago this massive issuance of corporate debt because there was this itty bitty window where the interest rates pull back. I mean, the problem is too much debt. So let's fix that with even more debt. No. If you know you're declaring bankruptcy, what do? And so you go out, if you get a credit card, you're going to go spend it. Well, what you really need to be doing is saving sound money. Let everything implode. Let all the garbage that's in the system right now, all that speculative garbage, let it wipe out. We will see who will survive this, because honestly, with all of the shenanigans and funny accounting tricks and off balance sheet crap and all of that, I can't sit here and tell you who is going to survive, what cryptocurrencies are going to survive. Nobody has these answers at this point. Nobody. What the derivatives, I'll tell you this. I just did a piece the other day from the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency. This is something I look at regularly, of derivatives, so big bets in the FDIC insured banks that everybody feels so comfy with. And in reality, according to the OCC, there was an 88.4% netting benefit. What is that, right? What does that matter? What is that? Well, they'll take this derivative contract and this derivative contract, and magically, even though they're not identical, they just cancel each other out. So what does that mean? Well, that means that presuming you're getting accurate information, you can go into how much derivative exposure the banks are claiming and then just multiply it by the netting benefit. So it gives you a much more clear idea of the number of contracts that are actually out there, not the underlying value, but just what Wall Street has agreed that those contracts are worth. And that was close, not quite, but close to $7 quadrillion.
That is rather shocking. This all brings about another question, which is, how much does the fiat currency we live under, how much is it responsible for driving conflicts and hot wars around the world? There's that adage, and there's an interesting documentary out there called All Wars Are Bankers' Wars.
Yep.
What is the end result of all of this? Because obviously the fiat system, we're living under it globally, and we have been since 71. Some would argue things broke down earlier, as until 71 we were under a Bretton Woods system where the dollar was pegged to gold and other currencies were pegged to the dollar. But at this point, how many wars, how many global conflicts have happened? How much do you think the fiat currency system's been responsible for all of this?
Oh, darling, I got all the proof in the world that it's basically all of it. I think it was maybe in 2017 or 18. I can't quite remember when, but it's been a while. And I asked that same exact question to myself. So I dug in, and what I discovered was that there used to be roughly about, I think 52, I could be off a little bit, but I'll be reasonably close, about 52 years between wars. So what happens is the central banks provide all the money. They do a gold confiscation. They inflate away the value of the currency. And then the public had about 52 years to forget about it. That was so long ago that can't happen again. So that happened several times. The War of 1812, the Civil War, the Revolutionary War in the U.S. Then once they legalized the Federal Reserve in 1913, I watched, and anybody can do this. You see that the distance between, or the time distance between wars grew shorter and shorter and shorter and shorter until I'm pretty sure it was 1989. We have been in a perpetual state of war. And I believe it was Ron Paul who said, it is no coincidence that the era of perpetual central banking and the era of perpetual war coincide. Because you can always point the finger. We're not creating the inflation. They are. It's the war. Here, be distracted. Look over here when we're doing all of this stuff over here, but you're busy looking at that. We can point the finger at that. So 100 bazillion %. And we've seen the growth of the industrial complex, et cetera, and the power that, not just in the US, but I mean around the world, the power that's wielded. So 100%, this is a fiat money phenomenon, 100%.
The Strait of Hormuz closure, I don't know if you could call it an official closure, but certainly not many ships are making it through. We're in a situation where insurance companies do not want to insure vessels at this point. So it's essentially creating a sort of soft blockade that has been a lot of the reason why oil prices have gone up so high. Now, assuming it doesn't open up soon, how big of an impact do you think that could have on the global economy and inflation in a time when so many are already having trouble making ends meet?
If you're going from, you're doubling the price of oil, that impacts everything. Fertilizer, and some of the fertilizer plants have shut down. So anything that we do, not just at the gas pump. And I can say that, when I was driving the other day, now I personally have a hybrid, and I like my hybrid because if I'm staying close, I don't use any gas. But I saw gas prices up over $5 a gallon here in Phoenix. Yeah. Well, so, and it's not just at the pump though, because if you need to put that gas in your car to get to work, then you're probably not, might impact your ability to buy that blouse or pants at Walmart or wherever else you've got to buy your stuff from. So this will impact, even if it was open today, the damage to the infrastructure is going to take a long time to repair. And I would honestly say that I do personally, since what I track more than anything else these days is confidence, the consumer confidence, because that's what's holding this together is the public confidence. I think that the interest or the inflation will spike high enough to be, it's already noticeable, much more noticeable. And I think that will eliminate any level of confidence that the public now has. And I think that that's when the hyperinflation will start to become noticeable.
Yeah, that's a great segue because my very next question was about a video you released on your YouTube channel a few weeks back titled The Confidence Crash That Could Trigger Hyperinflation. So walk us through that scenario, how you think it could emerge, and what the implications could be.
Well, number one, I think it's already emerging in this whole big affordability issue, right? That's actually been an issue for a really long time, but that means that the public is really hesitant and they're also not comfortable with their job prospects, either maintaining their position or losing their position. And so that has everything to do with confidence in the system. And that is required because this is a Ponzi scheme. And so there are two key things that are always required in every Ponzi scheme. And this is what the problem is. The biggest one is confidence. And the second one is new money. And we've kind of already done that new money piece so that when they go out and they being the central banks, when they print and create from debt all of this new money, it destroys the rest of the purchasing power. So now when you go to the store and that loaf of bread has gone from, $5 for a loaf to $9 for a loaf, what does that do to the confidence that you've got some kind of stable future? And there's already a growing revolution, which thank goodness, because there needs to be. Because if there isn't, then the guys that are in power that have abused us all these years will continue that. So I see inflation probably back at 7-8% officially, which means much higher than that unofficially. And people will stop. They're going to stop all discretionary spending. They don't have any choice. They already don't have much choice about that. And then if they do, what does that do to all of the prices? It makes them go up even more. That's that doom loop that goes from, collateral, intermediary, liquidity, confidence, and then real world. And so that will definitely hit. That's in that confidence piece that hits the real world. And if you can remember back to 2008, once the subprime, which was really a derivative issue, once that imploded, then it was like a domino effect with the rest of the real world. And what saved that or prevented it from dropping much more, and I'm thinking real estate in particular, was a whole bunch of this. But they've been using that since 2008. And what they've seen is that every time they do that, they have to do a whole lot more and they're getting a whole lot less impact. Well, there's your hyperinflation because that feeds into all of everything you do and buy. So you've got the rising oil prices that impact every single thing we do: food, generating water, energy, everything. So all of your costs are going up. And you mentioned insurance. They're disgusting as it is. They don't want to really insure. That's not really their job. Their job is to not pay you out. So that too goes into the cost of everything. So, I don't like to put any time frames on things because timing is the biggest challenge for any technician. I do have my beautiful crystal ball, and I can look at the crystal ball and say, when, but it never answers.
Well, how much of this is all by, yeah, I like it. How much of this is all by design and this the digital prison that's trying to be implemented, we've got the digital euro potentially rolling out fairly soon. I haven't been following it too closely recently. The EU's got all sorts of problems. I don't know if they'll be able to roll this out and implement it as soon as they'd like. But of course, this whole stablecoin situation in the United States, how much of that is potentially a Trojan horse to kind of bring people into a digital currency system? And ultimately, as this hyperinflation occurs, you have to imagine the political elites, the banker class, are going to use this as a tool to corral the herd into some sort of digital alternative. Is that what you see happening?
100%. I mean, 100%. You know, when you study currency life cycles and you see these repeatable patterns, and to your point, Jesse, they are not going to just go, oh, all right, we've taken enough from you. We are going back. If we don't do something about it, if we don't get redeemable gold back in the system again, we're back at feudal times. Because this digital prison, I've been watching Bitcoin since what? It came out in 2009. I believe it was 2010 at $7 a coin. That's how long I've been watching Bitcoin. People think I don't know anything about it, but, and you're right. I'm not an engineer, and I'm certainly not that kind of an engineer, but I absolutely trust my knowledge on regime changes and currency life cycles. And when one currency dies, another one is born. Gold and silver hold your purchasing power intact and protect you. And they are the bridge to get you from one system to the other system. And also, oh, by the way, take advantage of opportunities along the way as all of this fiat money inflation is burned out of these assets. And again, we see who's going to survive because all of this was built on debt. And at some point, all debt gets handled in some way. You either pay it, you roll it over, or you default on it. Is there another way? Let's see, pay it, roll it over. Yeah, I think that's it. What else can you do with debt? So you can take on more debt to pay it, roll it over, and that is wash, rinse, and repeat. Look at the debt. Look at any of the debt charts. That's exactly what's happening. Wash, rinse, and repeat. So if the whole entire system is built on constantly compounding debt, can that happen forever? And do they want it to? No, they do not. Without one doubt in my mind, this is my physical representation of Bitcoin. Amazing how much it looks like this, because they want you to think that this garbage that is just an algorithm is the same as this. Man created this. God created this. In fact, gold and silver are the only money that God created, and they're above global central bankers and governments' ability to inflate away. Why? Because I say so, or even because God says so. I'm not very religious, really. I'm very spiritual, just not very religious. No, it's because I pulled up and I was like, okay, how many areas and what groups in the sector of the global economy use physical gold? 33, Jesse. How many sectors of the global economy use physical silver? 36, Jesse. How many areas is this stuff, whichever currency, it doesn't really matter. How many areas use this stuff? One. I mean, it's definitely a trading tool. This is in one area, the financial area only. And how about this physical representation of an algorithm? One place. We're in the fight of our lives. Everybody needs to determine, do you want to trust everything that is only used in one place? So when that demand goes away, it evaporates. We've seen a lot of those bonds at JP Morgan, these private equity issues that have gone from par, so $100 or $1,000 par, to zero, written off overnight. I think that's pretty darn interesting. Physical gold and silver do not go in those doom loops. They sit outside that doom loop. So even if you're going to make that choice, you better be properly diversified. But 100%, this fiat system is about robbing you, and they've done an outstanding job of it because you have to volunteer. Let's stop volunteering. What is that? Though I have to say, I listened to this woman on Bloomberg this morning. I don't remember her name. I pulled up what she was talking about, so I will know her name because I didn't leave it to my memory. But she was talking about how the US dollar and Wall Street, this is like a Hallmark movie. And she reckoned it right back to Reese Witherspoon in Sweet Alabama or something like that, that one movie where she's in Manhattan and she's dating Patrick Dempsey and he asks her to marry him. And this is a very suave and very handsome guy, but she had to go back to her hometown to find her true love. And so her point is that everybody is piling into dollars and into Wall Street because they don't see a better alternative. You want to know what the better alternative is? Right here. I thought that was an interesting analogy, though.
Yeah, I like that. Very well said. Well, tell us about Zang International. Tell us about your YouTube channel and anywhere else you want to direct people online.
Well, we are very active all over the place, but in YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, it's at ZANGINTL. So Zang International. On X, it's at the Lynette Zang. And every Tuesday in Arizona time, I do a live, like a 2.5-hour Q&A live every week. Next week, I'm going to be traveling for a few weeks, so it'll be a little bit different. But I'm easy to find. I'm easy to get to. And we're very active because we believe so strongly in education and citizens for sound money. We all have to look in the mirror right now. This is the time to look, not go, I'll save that for later. We have to look in the mirror and you have to ask yourself, if not me, who? And if not now, when? Because we are in the battle of our lives, and not for ourselves, but for our children and all the children yet to come. And I have some serious concerns about what is going to happen if not only do we not get sound money in the system, but people continue to be dependent upon the system. And that's where local community comes in.
Yes, and I'm going to put links in the description to Zang International, the website, as well as your YouTube and social media, so people can follow along. Lynette, always a fantastic conversation. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Anytime, Jesse. You are absolutely one of my most favorite people. And I can't wait to come and see you in person.
Thank you for joining us today. Our sponsor, ARC Silver Gold Osmium, has some great prices on precious metals, bullion products. You can see them on your screen right now. These are subject to change and well supplies last. So reach out to owner Ian Everard today at 307-264-9441 or by email at ian@arcsgo.com, and make sure to tell him that Commodity Culture sent you, and I'll see you guys in the next episode. Commodity Culture is a series on commodities and natural resources. If you would like to see more, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification so you're always up to date with the latest episodes.